All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to kind of zoom in on something. It's something that's like super fundamental to being a student
Hmm.
motivation, right? Like why we do what we do in school.
Yeah, totally.
And to help us really get into this, we've got this review article. It's from Educational Psychology Review.
Okay.
And the title is a bit of a mouthful, but stick with me, all right? It's called The Intersection of the Peer Ecology and Teacher Practices for Student Motivation in the Classroom.
Wow, okay. They really packed a lot in there.
They did, they did. But the cool thing is that this research, it brings together two really powerful forces. And these are forces you encounter every single day at school, right? Like
Yeah.
how you interact with your friends and then your relationships with teachers. And it kind of uses those two things to figure out, like, what makes you want to learn.
I mean, that's so interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because it kind of highlights that your own drive to learn, your motivation, it's not just some switch inside you.
Right. Yeah.
Like it's on or it's off. It's
Oh.
it's deeply, deeply affected by your surroundings, by everything around you.
For sure. Yeah. So, at the heart of it, what we're going to be exploring here is how those social dynamics, right,
Yeah.
at school, whether it's your tight-knit group of friends or those connections you forge with teachers, they really shape your motivation when it comes to academics.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's easy to think of motivation as something you've either like you got it or you don't.
Yeah.
But honestly, the environment around you, it's like it's constantly kind of nudging that motivation,
Yeah,
you know?
for sure. For sure. So, okay, so our goal for you today, our listeners, is to kind of pull out the really key insights. Like, how do these dynamics between peers and teachers, how do they really affect that internal engine,
Yeah,
that drive?
absolutely. We want to try and give you a much clearer understanding of those influences, the ones that are often kind of invisible.
Mhm.
And we don't want to get too bogged down in like all the academic terms and jargon.
Right. Make it nice and straightforward.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So, all right, let's jump right in. First up, we got to talk about peers. Why do they matter so much when it comes to how motivated we feel? So this article, it really emphasizes social support.
Oh, yeah, social support's huge. And I think it makes sense if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Your friends, they're there to offer comfort, like emotional comfort when you're like really stressed out about that upcoming test, right?
Uh-huh.
Or they can even offer practical help.
Right.
Like if you're struggling with some assignment and you just can't quite grasp it.
Yeah.
But even beyond that, that feeling of belonging, like you're part of something. And that taps into something really deep in us as humans, right?
Mm.
That need to feel connected, to be accepted. And having that sense of security, knowing you've got your friends there, it really becomes this foundation for building your academic drive.
Yeah. I can imagine, like, if you're feeling totally overwhelmed by some subject, right? And you know that your friend's going through the exact same thing and they're there to be like, hey, you got this. Like,
Yeah.
that could completely change how you approach it.
Oh, absolutely. Like just
Mm.
knowing you're not alone, that makes such a difference.
Mm.
Now, there's another thing the article digs into. It's this idea that your peers, they kind of act as like these socializing agents, right?
Okay.
So they're shaping what you come to believe about how important achievement is. Like, is it all about grades or is it about actually understanding the material?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it, just getting by doing the bare minimum?
Right.
And they even influence the goals that you set for yourself academically.
Wow. Okay.
And the thing is, you might not even realize it's happening, but you often start to like mirror the attitudes towards school of your closest friends.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like this unspoken absorption of how your friends view academics.
Yeah, but like if you're good friends, they genuinely care about doing well in, let's say, history class. You're more likely to see history as being important too.
Exactly. It's subtle,
Yeah.
but it's powerful.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful form of influence.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So now the article, it goes deeper. It actually breaks down peer relationships into three main types.
Okay.
And it looks at how each one connects to your motivation.
Okay. I'm intrigued. What are the three types?
All right, so let's start with the most straightforward one. Just friendship itself. Right?
Okay, yeah. Friendship.
I mean, on the surface, it seems pretty simple, right? Having good friends at school, it makes the whole experience more enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're enjoying yourself, you're probably going to be more engaged in everything, including your classes.
Right. Makes sense to me.
But it's important to remember that the quality of those friendships, That really matters.
Okay.
Positive friendships where you feel supported, where you feel understood,
Hmm.
those often go hand in hand with higher motivation. If you genuinely like spending time with your friends at school. Yeah.
You're going to feel more connected to the whole school experience
Right.
and more willing to put effort into everything, including your studies.
So what about, like, the flip side of that, right?
Yeah.
Like, what if you're someone who's, like, having trouble making friends?
Right.
Or you're, like, feeling left out? Like, how does that affect things?
Yeah. Well, the research suggests that that can definitely have a negative impact on motivation. If school doesn't feel like a positive social space for you,
Hmm.
it can be really, really tough to find that drive to focus on learning.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the second type of peer dynamic the article talks about is social status
Okay.
or, popularity.
Mm.
And this one, it's a little more complicated. It's not as straightforward.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, does being popular automatically mean you're going to be super motivated in class?
Not necessarily. It's more nuanced than that. Sometimes being well liked, it can give your confidence a boost.
Hmm. Right. It makes you feel like you really belong in the school community.
Yeah.
And that can indirectly support your motivation.
Oh, okay.
But the real key here is, what does the popular group value?
Ah, right?
If the dominant social group in your school or even in your classroom, if they don't really care about academics,
Yeah.
then being popular, it might actually mean you downplay your own efforts,
Right.
right? You don't want to stand out too much. You want to fit in.
So it's like if the cool kids are the ones who are like, who cares about grades?
Right.
Then there might be this pressure to act like you don't care either, even if you do.
Exactly. And the article makes this really important distinction. There are different ways to be popular, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some students are popular because they're genuinely kind, they're helpful, they're well-liked for good reasons.
Right.
But others, they might become popular through, like, more aggressive behaviors.
Yeah.
Or by excluding others.
Mm-hmm.
And these different paths to popularity, they have different effects.
Right.
Both on the individual student and on the overall atmosphere of the whole peer group.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like someone who's popular because they're inclusive and supportive, that's
Yeah.
going to create a very different environment than someone who's popular by, being kind of intimidating.
Totally. And that brings us to the third type of peer influence,
Mm-hmm.
the classroom peer group culture.
Okay.
So this isn't just about your immediate circle of friends,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
It's about the general vibe in the classroom.
Yeah.
Like, are students generally supportive of each other's learning? Is it cool to participate?
Right.
Or is there this unspoken rule that, like, you shouldn't try too hard?
Mm-hmm.
These kind of unspoken norms around achievement, they can make a huge difference in how motivated individual students feel.
So not just my best friends, but like the general attitude towards academics in the whole classroom.
Exactly. Think about it. If everyone in your study group is really motivated, chances are you're going to be hitting the books too, right? Same thing in the classroom. If academic success is something that's generally valued by the students, you're more likely to feel motivated yourself.
Yeah, you can totally feel the difference walking into a classroom where, like, people are genuinely excited about the subject versus one where everyone's just like, ugh, when is this class over?
Exactly. Now, the article shifts gears a little bit.
Yeah.
It starts to focus on how teachers come into the picture.
Okay.
And this is where the connection between those two worlds, the peers and the teachers,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes really clear.
Right. Because it's not like those two things are completely separate, right? Like your friendships exist and then your interactions with teachers exist.
Yeah.
But there's got to be some overlap there.
Absolutely. Teachers, they aren't just there to, like, give you information.
Right.
They also have this big impact on shaping that peer environment, that whole web of relationships in the classroom.
Yeah. So how do teachers actually influence this? Like, what do they do?
Okay, so one really crucial way is by creating a supportive classroom climate.
Okay.
So when teachers, they foster a sense of belonging, of relatedness, mutual respect among the students,
Mm-hmm.
that has a ripple effect.
Yeah.
It directly impacts the peer relationships.
Okay.
Imagine a classroom where your teacher really makes an effort to ensure that every student feels seen, valued, included.
Yeah.
That teacher is indirectly boosting motivation by fostering a more positive social atmosphere.
Right. So it's not just about the academic content. It's also about like that emotional and social environment.
Exactly. And the article also highlights this thing called teacher attunement.
Teacher attunement.
Yeah. It's basically the teacher sensitivity to and responsiveness to all those social dynamics that are happening in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
They're aware of the friendship groups.
Okay.
They kind of notice the social hierarchies, even those subtle shifts in how students are interacting.
That sounds like a lot to keep track of.
It is. It's a complex skill.
Yeah. But even small, subtle things that a teacher does, if they're paying attention to those dynamics, can nudge those peer interactions in a more positive direction.
Mhm.
For example, let's say a teacher strategically pairs students for group projects,
Mm,
maybe to encourage new connections,
right.
or they address, instances of exclusion to try to foster a more inclusive environment.
Right.
These actions, they might seem small, but they can have this ripple effect, right?
Yeah.
They can influence the overall motivation in the classroom.
So the teacher is kind of like a subtle social architect in a way,
Exactly.
shaping the environment.
Yeah. And of course, we can't forget about the direct impact of the relationships that you have with your teachers themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Positive teacher-student relationships, they can act as a buffer.
Okay.
They can protect you from some of those negative peer influences, and they can foster a stronger sense of engagement with school overall.
Okay.
If you feel supported by your teacher, if you feel like they care about you.
It can really, really strengthen your motivation, regardless of what's going on with your peers.
Yeah, I imagine that feeling of like having an adult in your corner at school, someone who believes in you.
Mm-hmm.
That must be huge for students' confidence and their willingness to put themselves out there and learn.
Totally. And the article, it goes on to talk about specific teaching practices and how those connect to the peer environment
Okay.
and ultimately how they affect student motivation.
Okay, let's dive into some of those.
Okay, so one thing they talk about is how teachers structure goals in the classroom.
It's classroom goals. Okay.
Yeah, so this is about what teachers emphasize as important, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it primarily about grades and competition?
Right.
Or is it more about learning, understanding, and personal improvement?
Okay, so how does that connect back to the peer environment?
Well, teachers who emphasize those learning and improvement goals,
Mm-hmm.
they tend to create a more supportive peer environment.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, in those classrooms, students are more likely to encourage each other's learning,
Mm-hmm.
to see asking for help as a good thing, not a sign of weakness.
Right. Right.
And they're more likely to value effort, really trying in school within their peer groups.
So if the focus is on understanding the material and seeing how much you're learning, as opposed to just like getting the A,
Yeah,
that creates a less competitive and more collaborative kind of vibe.
exactly. It can make, participating in class and engaging with the material, it makes it more appealing
Yeah.
and less threatening.
Right.
And it fits in better with the social dynamics of the classroom.
That makes a lot of sense. What about how teachers deal with like social issues in the classroom?
Oh, yeah, that's another big one. So how teachers handle things like bullying or cliques forming,
Mm-hmm.
it has a huge impact on the overall social climate.
Right.
If a teacher takes a proactive approach, they can foster a more inclusive and supportive environment. And that can really benefit everyone's motivation. Because if students feel safe and respected
Mm-hmm.
and like they belong, they're much more likely to be engaged in learning.
Makes sense. Because if you're like constantly worried about being ostracized or bullied,
Yeah.
that's going to take up so much mental energy. You're not going to have any left for for learning.
Exactly. And believe it or not, even something as simple as seating arrangements can make a difference.
Seating arrangements.
Yeah. Where you sit in the classroom, it can influence who you interact with regularly.
Mm-hmm.
And those interactions, they can affect how engaged you are.
Right.
So a teacher who's really thoughtful about seating arrangements,
Yeah.
they can subtly shape those peer dynamics.
Okay.
They might separate students who tend to distract each other,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe they'll place a student who needs a little extra encouragement near a peer who's really engaged and supportive.
So it's not just about logistics, like who sits where. It's about like intentionally creating certain kinds of social interactions.
Exactly. And one final point the article touches on is how a teacher's perceptions of students and how they treat different students
Mm-hmm.
can actually influence those students' social status among their peers.
Okay. So like if a teacher clearly favors certain students, that could affect how those students are seen by their classmates.
Yeah, the research suggests that that can happen.
Yeah.
So, it all comes back to this idea of interconnectedness.
Right.
Your motivation, it's not just about what's going on inside your head.
Mm.
It's constantly being shaped by this back and forth between your friendships
Yeah.
and your relationships with your teachers.
Right. So it's like this constant interplay between those two forces.
Exactly. And your motivation, it's not determined by just one or the other. It's really about how those two worlds intersect.
Yeah.
So a supportive teacher can help to protect you from negative peer influences.
Mm.
And positive friendships, they can make good teaching even more effective.
Right. But then it can go the other way too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like a negative peer culture in a classroom could totally undermine even the best teachers' efforts to motivate their students.
Absolutely. Imagine a classroom where it's like totally uncool to try hard.
Yeah.
Even a really, really great teacher might struggle to motivate students in that environment.
Because they're afraid of social backlash.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So with all of that said,
Yeah.
like, what does all of this mean for you, our listener? What are the big takeaways here?
Well, I think the core message is this. Your motivation, it's not just this thing that you magically have or don't have.
Mhm.
It's deeply tied to those relationships you have at school with both your friends and your teachers.
Right.
So understanding those dynamics, that can really help you recognize what's influencing your own drive to learn.
Yeah, and becoming more aware of those influences
Mm-hmm.
can help you navigate them.
Right.
Absolutely. And as a final thought to chew on, to think about,
Mm-hmm.
think back on your own experiences in school, right?
Yeah.
Can you remember any specific times when your friends' attitudes about school or your relationship with a specific teacher
Mm-hmm.
really impacted how motivated you felt?
Right.
And what kind of classroom environments, like thinking about both the peer dynamics and the teacher's style,
Yeah.
what kind of environment did you personally find the best for helping you feel motivated?
Mm-hmm.
This whole interplay between peers and teachers, it's something that, we should all keep observing,
Yeah.
keep thinking about as we continue our learning journeys.
Absolutely. Well, hey, thanks so much for breaking all that down for us.
Of course, it was great to be here.
This was a really fascinating deep dive, so I appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for listening to the deep dive. Until next time.